Every person is born with the same powerful tool, a mind capable of shaping destiny. Yet only a few ever learn to use it deliberately. The difference between ordinary existence and extraordinary achievement lies in how one trains the mind. The mind is like a fertile field. Whatever we plant, it will grow. If we plant seeds of doubt, fear, and limitation, we harvest the same. But if we sow thoughts of vision, discipline, and courage, the crop will be abundance, confidence, and success. Greatness never arrives by chance. It is the natural outcome of disciplined thinking, of learning to direct the mind toward constructive ends. Every day, our thoughts carve pathways that determine our actions. The mind becomes what it's fed, and over time it reflects the quality of what we consistently dwell upon. The first step to training the mind for greatness is awareness, to understand that you are the thinker, not the thought. Most people let their minds wander aimlessly, reacting to the world rather than shaping it. But the moment you take control of what occupies your attention, you begin to guide your life. Greatness begins with the decision to think on purpose. The second step is discipline. Just as an athlete trains his body, the mind too must be trained through practice. This means setting aside time each day for focused reflection, for study, for deliberate visualization of what you want to become. The undisciplined mind is restless. It jumps from one distraction to another, never resting long enough to create. But the trained mind is calm, clear, and directed. It becomes a servant to your vision rather than a master of your emotions. Next comes belief. The mind can only act upon what it believes to be possible. If you believe that success, growth, and fulfillment are beyond your reach, your actions will quietly conform to that belief. But when you accept that greatness is not reserved for a chosen few, that it is the natural birthright of every disciplined thinker, your life begins to align with that conviction. Belief gives power to thought, and thought gives form to reality. Another vital step is focus. The great tragedy of modern life is divided attention. We scatter our mental energy across too many trivial pursuits. The mind trained for greatness learns to say no to distractions, to negativity, to everything that dilutes its purpose. It concentrates on one meaningful aim until it becomes reality. True focus is the rarest form of intelligence. Then comes gratitude. The mind cannot grow in a state of complaint. Gratitude clears the inner fog and makes room for clarity, creativity, and peace. It turns what we have into enough and reminds us of the abundance already present in our lives. From that state, the mind becomes a magnet for opportunity and growth. Finally, greatness requires persistence. The mind must be trained to endure difficulty, to remain steady when results do not appear overnight. Every worthwhile goal demands patience and faith. Each setback is not a failure, but a test to see if the dream was genuine enough to withstand temporary defeat. When the mind is trained to persist, success becomes inevitable. You see, greatness is not a mystery. It is a result, the result of thought, discipline, and direction. The world becomes what you believe it can be, and you become what you think about most of the time. Train the mind, and life itself begins to obey the quiet strength of your inner conviction. Awareness is the beginning of all transformation. Until a person becomes aware of what occupies his mind, he cannot hope to change it. The majority of people move through life unaware of the constant flow of thoughts that shape their moods, choices, and actions. They react rather than create. They drift with the current of the world's noise instead of steering their own course. Awareness is the act of waking up, of realizing that you are the thinker, not the thought. It is the recognition that the mind is a tool, and that you are meant to direct it, not be ruled by it. When this awareness dawns, a person discovers a truth that can change everything, that life takes the shape of one's dominant thoughts. What you continually think about, you become. What you allow to dwell in your mind, you eventually express in your circumstances. To train the mind for greatness, one must first observe it quietly, without judgment. Watch how thoughts arise, how they pull attention toward fear, doubt, or worry. Notice how easily the mind is drawn to negativity, how it clings to past mistakes or future anxieties. This simple act of noticing begins to weaken their grip. Awareness shines light on the dark corners of the mind, and where there is light, confusion begins to fade. When you start to see your thought patterns clearly, you also begin to see the connection between your inner state and the outer world. You realize that your experiences are mirrors reflecting your habitual thinking. This realization alone is enough to awaken responsibility. The mind is not a storm you must endure. It is a system you can understand, guide, and transform. Awareness also means understanding the incredible power of attention. Wherever your attention goes, energy flows. The thoughts you give energy to will grow stronger, while those you ignore will wither away. The mind becomes what it repeatedly focuses on, whether that be problems or possibilities, fear or faith, limitation or abundance. Most people allow their attention to be stolen by distraction, by endless noise, gossip, and triviality. But when you begin to take control of your attention, you begin to take control of your life. Awareness teaches you to become selective about what you allow to enter your consciousness. It means guarding your mind as carefully as a gardener protects the soil from weeds. When awareness deepens, you start to see how external influences shape internal thought. The books you read, the conversations you engage in, the media you consume, all these feed the mind, either nourishing or poisoning it. A person seeking greatness must therefore choose carefully what they expose their mind to. Each impression leaves a mark. The aware individual begins to live deliberately, filtering experiences through the question, does this serve my growth or drain my strength? This simple question acts as a compass, keeping the mind aligned with purpose. Awareness creates choice, and choice creates freedom. Without awareness, there is no true choice, only reaction and repetition. Another aspect of awareness is recognizing emotional triggers. Every emotion begins as a thought, often so quick and quiet that it escapes notice. But if you can become aware of that spark before it turns into flame, you can redirect it. When irritation arises, awareness lets you pause before anger forms. When doubt creeps in, awareness lets you see it as a passing cloud, not an absolute truth. This power to pause, to observe instead of react, is what separates the trained mind from the untrained one. The person who sees his thoughts clearly no longer fears them. He becomes calm in the face of challenge because he knows that his inner state determines his outer outcome. To cultivate awareness, one must practice stillness. In stillness, the mind reveals itself. Even a few moments of silence each day can transform mental chaos into clarity. Sitting quietly, breathing slowly, simply observing the flow of thought without judgment. This is mental training in its purest form. Through such practice, awareness expands beyond mere thought observation. It begins to perceive the deeper patterns that guide behavior. You start to recognize the habits of the mind, the stories you tell yourself, the assumptions you carry, the beliefs you rarely question. As awareness grows, those old patterns lose power. The mind becomes lighter, freer, more capable of original thought. Awareness also means seeing possibility where others see limitation. When you are awake to the power within your own mind, you begin to notice opportunities that once went unseen. You notice how a problem contains the seed of a solution, how adversity can sharpen strength, how every moment offers a chance to think better, to choose better. Awareness replaces helplessness with intention. It gives you the ability to direct your mental energy with precision instead of waste. It makes you sensitive to the quality of your thoughts and the results they produce. When awareness is fully developed, it becomes a quiet strength, a constant companion that guides you through the noise of life. It helps you see that greatness is not something to be chased outside yourself, but something to be cultivated within. It is born in the space between thought and response, in the ability to witness the workings of your own mind and choose your direction consciously. The more aware you become, the less life seems random, and the more it reveals itself as a reflection of what you hold within. Through awareness, the mind becomes a clear mirror, reflecting truth rather than distortion, order rather than confusion, purpose rather than drift. Discipline is the bridge between the mind's potential and its power. Without discipline, even the greatest ideas remain dormant. The mind, like any muscle, must be trained through repetition and structure. It must learn to obey direction, to hold a single thought without scattering into distraction. In a world that rewards speed and noise, discipline teaches stillness, patience, and control. It is the quiet foundation upon which greatness is built. The mind, left untrained, behaves like a wild horse, constantly shifting, restless, and untamed. But once discipline takes hold, that same mind becomes a force capable of remarkable focus and creativity. Discipline is not about restriction, it is about mastery. The ability to use the mind as an instrument instead of being used by it. Every achievement in history has been born of disciplined thought. The inventor who spends years perfecting a single design. The artist who practices every day until mastery feels natural. The leader who studies human behavior to guide others effectively. Each of them operates through mental discipline. It is the ability to stay with one idea long enough for it to mature. Most people abandon their goals not because they lack intelligence or opportunity, but because they lack mental endurance. They cannot hold their focus through the dull, repetitive phases of progress. Discipline teaches the mind to stay the course even when the excitement fades. It replaces the hunger for instant reward with the satisfaction of steady growth. To cultivate mental discipline, one must begin with small acts of consistency. The mind must learn to follow through on what it starts. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen the bond between thought and action. Each small completion becomes proof to the mind that your word has weight. Whether it is rising early, reading daily, or dedicating time to reflection, the power lies in consistency, not size. Discipline is forged through daily effort, not occasional inspiration. The more consistent the effort, the more obedient the mind becomes. In time, the once distracted mind begins to move with purpose, returning naturally to focus whenever it wanders. Discipline also involves managing attention deliberately. Modern life constantly pulls the mind in every direction. Messages, entertainment, and opinions compete for mental real estate. Without discipline, the mind becomes cluttered, filled with noise instead of clarity. To train the mind for greatness, one must learn to guard it against such intrusion. This means deciding where attention goes and refusing to waste it on what does not serve your purpose. The disciplined mind learns to say no to meaningless distractions, to idle talk, to activities that drain energy but add no value. By doing less but doing it with complete presence, the mind becomes sharper, more powerful, and infinitely more creative. Another aspect of discipline is self-control. The mind constantly produces impulses, desires to act, to speak, to react. Discipline allows you to pause, to assess whether an impulse aligns with your higher aim. It is the difference between reaction and response. In that pause, power is found. Every time you choose restraint over reaction, you strengthen control over your mind. This control builds character, and character builds destiny. Those who cannot control their thoughts are controlled by circumstance. But those who practice self-mastery begin to bend circumstance to their will. Discipline also requires structure. The mind thrives in a system. Routine is not a cage, it is a framework for freedom. When the essentials of life are structured, the mind is liberated to focus on creation and growth. Great thinkers and creators throughout history have understood this truth. They built daily habits that supported clarity, specific hours for work, reflection, study, and rest. Such structure trains the mind to associate certain actions with certain outcomes, turning discipline into an unconscious rhythm. Over time, this rhythm becomes natural, and what once required effort begins to feel effortless. Mental discipline also involves controlling what enters the mind. Just as the body is shaped by what it consumes, the mind is shaped by its mental diet. The books you read, the conversations you keep, the thoughts you entertain. These become the raw materials of your thinking. The disciplined mind chooses nourishment over noise. It feeds on wisdom, ideas, and truths that elevate, not weaken. It avoids the easy indulgence of negativity or gossip. By carefully selecting mental input, the mind becomes refined and resilient. Discipline demands patience. The fruits of mental training rarely appear overnight. At first, the effort feels difficult, the results invisible, but over time, persistence carves new patterns in the brain. Thought becomes more ordered, focus lengthens, clarity deepens. The mind that was once scattered begins to align with purpose. This transformation is slow but irreversible. Every disciplined act lays another stone in the foundation of greatness. The results are cumulative, not sudden. Each moment of control, each decision to stay focused, each refusal to give in to laziness, all contribute to the creation of a strong, dependable mind. Discipline is also an act of respect for your time, your purpose, and your potential. It means treating your thoughts as sacred material worthy of care and attention. A disciplined mind refuses to waste energy on resentment or regret. It looks forward, always adjusting, always refining. It does not seek perfection, only progress. Through this quiet, steady commitment, the mind transforms from a restless wanderer into a powerful creator capable of shaping life according to vision. Belief is the invisible architect of destiny. It is the quiet force that shapes every decision, every action, every response to life circumstances. The mind will not act upon what it doubts. It can only move confidently toward what it believes to be true. Every great achievement began first as a belief, a conviction that something was possible even before any proof existed. The difference between those who reach extraordinary heights and those who remain where they started lies not in talent or luck, but in the depth of their belief. When belief is strong, the mind becomes bold, it dares to imagine, to act, to persist. When belief is weak, even the simplest goals seem unreachable. The first task in building belief is understanding that it is not given, it is created. It is a conscious choice, an inner agreement that what you desire is attainable. The human mind is a fertile ground, and belief is the seed from which success grows. When you plant belief and nurture it daily with thought, repetition, and vision, it takes root in the subconscious and begins to shape behavior. It influences every word, every habit, and every expectation. The person who believes they can succeed will find ways to do so, while the one who doubts will unconsciously create barriers. The outer world always adjusts itself to match the inner conviction. To strengthen belief, the mind must first reject doubt. Doubt is the silent destroyer of progress. It whispers limitations, it magnifies failure, and it convinces the thinker that the dream is too far beyond reach. But doubt has no power unless it is believed. The moment you question its authority, it begins to fade. Belief is a choice to give faith more strength than fear. It means deciding each day that your vision is real and possible even if the evidence has not yet appeared. The mind cannot hold both faith and fear at the same time. One must dominate. The person who deliberately chooses faith builds a mental foundation strong enough to withstand failure, criticism, and uncertainty. Belief is not blind optimism. It is not the denial of difficulty. It is a clear awareness of challenge combined with the certainty that you can overcome it. This kind of belief transforms obstacles into teachers and setbacks into preparation. It changes how the mind interprets reality. Where an untrained mind sees defeat, the believing mind sees a lesson. Where others see delay, it sees development. Every great thinker has operated from this understanding. They did not wait for proof before they believed. Their belief created the proof. They lived from the inside out, knowing that what they held within would eventually express itself in the world around them. Belief must also be supported by repetition. The subconscious mind accepts whatever is repeated often enough. Whether true or false, the thoughts you affirm daily become the blueprint for your life. That is why self-talk matters. The words you say to yourself when no one is listening create the limits or the freedom of your mind. A person who constantly repeats, "I can't," or "Who's impossible," trains the mind to stop trying. But the one who repeats, "I can," "I will," and "I am becoming," trains the mind to expect success. Expectation is the heartbeat of belief. You do not get what you wish for, you get what you expect with conviction. Belief also thrives in imagination. The ability to visualize a desired outcome with clarity and feeling strengthens faith. When the mind pictures successes already achieved, it begins to think and act accordingly. This is not fantasy. It is creative direction. The mind cannot distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and real ones. By repeatedly visualizing the goal, you program the subconscious to seek opportunities that align with that image. You become magnetically drawn toward what you mentally rehearse. Every great achievement begins as a clear mental picture held long enough to become reality. Surroundings also shape belief. The people you associate with, the conversations you engage in, the environment you inhabit, all feed or weaken your faith. It is difficult to believe in abundance while surrounded by constant negativity. It is difficult to grow in confidence while absorbing the doubts of others. That is why those who aim for greatness often distance themselves from small thinking. They choose influences that affirm possibility rather than impossibility. They read the words of those who achieve what others thought could not be done. They feed their belief daily as one feeds the body. Belief must be nourished, or it will weaken. Belief is also tested by time. When progress seems slow, when results are invisible, belief must hold steady. The untrained mind gives up when effort goes unrewarded. The believing mind continues because it knows that the unseen work of thought always precedes visible results. Faith is the ability to persist when logic offers no guarantee. It is the quiet confidence that the laws of cause and effect never fail. The moment you plant a seed, growth begins, even if it is not yet visible above the ground. The same is true for the seed of belief. To live with belief is to live with direction. It turns vague wishes into determined plans. It commands the mind to search for answers rather than excuses. It gives meaning to work, courage to effort, and patience to struggle. The individual who believes in his capacity to become more than he is already halfway there, for the mind moves naturally toward the image it accepts as true. The world reflects back to each person the strength of their inner conviction. Those who believe deeply act boldly, and those who act boldly change the course of their lives. Focus is the lens through which the mind turns thought into achievement. Without focus, even the strongest desires scatter like light through fog, diffused and powerless. The human mind has immense creative capacity, but that power only becomes effective when concentrated on one clear purpose. In a world overflowing with distractions, true focus has become a rare form of mastery. The average person allows attention to be stolen by noise, by urgency, by triviality, leaving little energy for what truly matters. Yet every great accomplishment, every innovation, every breakthrough in human history has been the product of sustained attention. The ability to hold the mind steadily on a single idea until it becomes reality. To train the mind for focus, one must begin by eliminating clutter, both internal and external. The mind cannot direct its energy efficiently when it is overloaded with unnecessary input. Every unfinished task, every unresolved worry, every meaningless distraction drains a portion of attention. Focus begins with simplification. It requires clarity of intention, knowing precisely what you want and why you want it. When purpose is clear, decisions become easier and distractions lose their grip. The unfocused mind tries to do everything at once and accomplishes little. The focused mind does fewer things with greater power. Focus also requires discipline of thought. The mind, by nature, wanders. It leaps from one subject to another, constantly seeking stimulation. But when trained through conscious practice, it learns to return to the chosen point of attention. This training begins with awareness, noticing when the mind drifts and gently bringing it back. Again and again, each time you do this, you strengthen the muscle of concentration. Over time, the mind becomes more obedient, more capable of holding a single thought without scattering. This is how deep work becomes possible, how the mind enters the state of flow where effort fades and creation feels natural. In a distracted world, One of the greatest challenges to focus is the constant demand for attention. Messages, notifications, and interruptions fragment the day, teaching the brain to live in a state of divided awareness. The mind becomes accustomed to short bursts of attention, never staying still long enough to reach depth. To counter this, one must consciously design environments that protect attention. Silence, solitude, and order are the allies of focus. The focused mind seeks quality over quantity. One task done with full awareness is worth 100 done in haste. The results of focus are exponential because all energy flows in one direction rather than being diluted across many. Focus is also strengthened by intention. Every action must be guided by a clear sense of purpose. The mind that lacks purpose is like a ship without a compass. It moves but goes nowhere. Before beginning any task, ask what outcome you wish to create. This simple act of intention aligns thought, emotion, and energy toward a common direction. The power of focus increases when it serves a definite goal. Vague effort produces vague results. Specific effort produces measurable progress. Focus transforms vision into reality by channeling the full strength of the mind toward a single aim. Another essential aspect of focus is learning to say no. Every yes to distraction is a no to progress. The unfocused person attempts to please everyone, to engage in everything, to chase every new idea. But greatness requires the courage to decline what does not serve the mission. Saying no is not an act of rejection but of preservation. It protects your mental resources from being wasted. The more you value your attention, the more carefully you spend it. Focused individuals understand that their energy is finite and they invest it only where it yields growth. The ability to say no is a mark of maturity, for it shows you understand the cost of divided attention. Focus also depends on energy. A tired, restless, or unhealthy body cannot sustain deep concentration. Physical well-being supports mental sharpness. Rest, nutrition, and movement are not luxuries, they are tools for clarity. When the body is cared for, the mind becomes lighter and more responsive. Similarly, emotional balance sustains focus. Worry, resentment, or anxiety consume attention. The focused mind learns to release what cannot be controlled and return to the present moment. Where all power resides, focus lives in the now, not in the past that cannot be changed or the future that has not yet arrived. Another dimension of focus is persistence. It is easy to stay focused when progress is visible, harder when it is not. But the deepest work often takes place in silence before any outward sign appears. The person who trains their mind to stay committed even when results are slow gains an advantage over those who quit at the first sign of boredom. Focused persistence creates momentum, and momentum builds mastery. Each moment of sustained attention compounds upon the last, turning ordinary effort into extraordinary results. The mind that learns to persist through monotony develops endurance, and endurance creates excellence. Focus also requires trust. The mind must believe that consistent attention to one path will yield reward. Doubt scatters energy, faith concentrates it. When you trust the process and remain focused on what truly matters, the invisible forces of growth begin to work in your favor. Every repetition strengthens neural pathways, every small effort builds confidence. The focused person lives intentionally, not reactively. They move through the day with purpose, directing their energy like light through a magnifying glass, burning through obstacles rather than being dimmed by them. Focus is not an act but a state, a steady alignment of thought, emotion, and willpower. It transforms effort into excellence, potential into performance, and vision into tangible creation. It is the quiet, consistent force behind all lasting greatness. Gratitude is the quiet strength that keeps the mind balanced amid the challenges of life. It is not merely a pleasant emotion. It is a disciplined way of seeing the world. The mind that is trained in gratitude learns to focus on what is present instead of what is missing, on what is working instead of what is broken. Most people move through their days in a state of quiet dissatisfaction, always reaching for something more, believing happiness lies just beyond the next achievement. But the person who practices gratitude sees that joy does not depend on possession, position, or circumstance. It is born from perception. Gratitude transforms ordinary moments into sources of peace and turns struggle into a lesson rather than a punishment. The power of gratitude lies in its ability to shift focus. The mind can only hold one dominant thought at a time. When it is filled with gratitude, it has no room for resentment, envy, or fear. Gratitude clears mental fog, replacing it with clarity and calmness. It allows the thinker to step out of complaint and into awareness. Every moment of gratitude is a moment of freedom, because it loosens the hold of negativity. The person who constantly complains closes the mind to opportunity, while the one who gives thanks opens it to possibility. The simple act of acknowledging what is good immediately changes the quality of thought, and when thought changes, life follows. Gratitude also connects the mind to abundance. The untrained mind often sees scarcity everywhere, believing there is never enough time, money, or opportunity. But gratitude reveals that life is already full. It awakens an awareness of the countless things that support existence. the breath in your lungs, the light of the morning, the kindness of others, the lessons learned through hardship. When you begin to notice how much you already have, you realize that abundance is not a condition to reach, but a reality to recognize. This shift in awareness creates a mental vibration that attracts more of what you appreciate. The mind becomes a magnet for growth, harmony, and prosperity when it dwells on what is good. Practicing gratitude requires mindfulness. It means slowing down enough to notice the beauty hidden in routine. The sound of laughter, the taste of food, the comfort of shelter, the chance to learn, the ability to think, all are gifts often taken for granted. Gratitude teaches the mind to be present. It removes the restless chase for more and replaces it with appreciation for now. This presence brings peace because it anchors the mind in reality rather than illusion. The person who practices gratitude daily becomes more centered, more grounded, and less shaken by life's fluctuations. Gratitude also dissolves comparison. The human mind has a tendency to measure its worth against others. This habit breeds dissatisfaction, because there will always be someone who appears to have more, know more, or achieve more. But gratitude redirects that energy inward, reminding you that your journey is unique. It teaches contentment without complacency, the ability to appreciate what is while still striving for improvement. When you are grateful, you do not envy the success of others, you celebrate it, because you understand that another's light does not dim your own. Gratitude creates a sense of connection rather than competition, and this connection expands peace of mind. Another function of gratitude is its power to heal. Emotional wounds often linger because the mind keeps replaying pain, loss, and disappointment. Gratitude interrupts that cycle. It shifts attention from what went wrong to what was learned, from what was lost to what remains. By finding meaning even in hardship, the mind begins to release resentment. Gratitude transforms suffering into wisdom. It reminds you that even difficult experiences contribute to growth, strengthening character and deepening understanding. The person who can give thanks in adversity possesses true mental power, for they have learned to see beyond appearance into purpose. Gratitude must also be expressed, not merely felt. Words and actions rooted in appreciation amplify its effect. When you thank others sincerely, you strengthen relationships and spread positivity. The energy of gratitude multiplies when shared. It becomes a bridge between minds, softening ego and inviting kindness. The grateful person radiates calm assurance, creating an atmosphere that uplifts others. This outward expression of gratitude reinforces the inner feeling, creating a cycle of giving and receiving that enriches both self and surroundings. The habit of gratitude also strengthens resilience. When faced with uncertainty or challenge, the grateful mind looks instinctively for what remains steady. It finds stability in the smallest certainties, in the breath, in effort, in the possibility of learning. This focus prevents despair and restores perspective. The ungrateful mind sees obstacles as punishment. The grateful mind sees them as preparation. Because it has trained itself to notice blessings, it never feels entirely defeated. There is always something left to appreciate, and that awareness fuels endurance. Gratitude does not erase difficulty, but it gives the strength to face it with dignity and grace. Gratitude refines perception until even the simplest things reveal depth. The ordinary becomes sacred. The morning light becomes a reminder of opportunity. The sound of rain becomes a symbol of renewal. Through gratitude, the mind develops a deeper sensitivity to life. It begins to see harmony where it once saw chaos, order where it once saw randomness. It opens to the quiet intelligence of existence, recognizing that everything contributes to growth. Gratitude is not an act of pretending everything is perfect. It is the art of seeing perfection in everything that is. Persistence is the quiet force that turns potential into reality. It is the ability to stay the course when results are slow, when motivation fades, when the world seems indifferent to your effort. Every person encounters resistance between vision and accomplishment, but only those who persist break through. The mind trained in persistence does not measure success by how easy the journey feels. It measures it by how steadfastly one continues despite discomfort. Greatness is not built in sudden leaps, but in continuous movement forward, one deliberate step at a time. Persistence transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary achievement, because it refuses to stop when others have already given up. The mind must first understand that obstacles are not signs to quit, but signals to grow stronger. Every challenge reveals where the mind must expand, where patience must deepen, where belief must strengthen. Without difficulty, persistence could never develop. It is the friction of adversity that sharpens mental endurance. Those who expect the path to be smooth are easily discouraged, but those who expect struggle see it as part of the process. When the mind embraces challenge instead of fearing it, persistence becomes natural. Each obstacle becomes an invitation to practice steadiness, to strengthen focus, and to continue acting even when progress is invisible. Persistence is not stubbornness, it is disciplined consistency. Stubbornness resists change, while persistence adapts without losing direction. The persistent mind adjusts its method but never its purpose. It learns from failure instead of fearing it. It studies mistakes, extracts lessons, and returns with greater wisdom. Each setback becomes a teacher. This ability to rise repeatedly, to begin again with improved understanding, is the foundation of mastery. Success belongs to those who can sustain effort long enough for the laws of cause and effect to unfold. Every meaningful result requires time to mature. The seed must stay in the soil long before the harvest appears. Persistence is the patience to trust that unseen progress is still progress. To develop persistence, the mind must be guided by clear vision. Without a definite purpose, persistence fades easily. Unclear goals invite hesitation, while clear purpose fuels endurance. When you know why you are working towards something, the energy to continue comes naturally. Vision gives strength to persistence by reminding the mind what lies beyond the struggle. Those who lose sight of their purpose lose momentum, but those who keep their purpose alive through imagination and belief renew their strength each day. Persistence is sustained not by willpower alone, but by the emotional conviction that the effort matters. The persistent mind also understands rhythm. Life moves in cycles of effort and rest, progress and pause. The person who expects constant movement burns out, but the one who respects rhythm learns to recover without quitting. Rest is not surrender, it is part of persistence. It restores energy so the next step can be taken with clarity and strength. The key is to pause without abandoning the path. Even during moments of stillness, the mind stays aligned with the goal. Persistence does not always mean action. Sometimes it means holding faith when action is not yet possible. Another aspect of persistence is emotional mastery. Feelings fluctuate, enthusiasm rises and falls, confidence grows and shrinks, but persistence stays steady beneath emotion. The trained mind does not depend on mood to continue. It acts from commitment, not impulse. The person who persists has learned to separate feeling from direction, to move forward regardless of doubt or fatigue. Each time this happens, the will strengthens. Emotion becomes a wave to ride, not a wall to stop against. This inner steadiness creates momentum, and momentum builds resilience. The more often you act despite resistance, the easier persistence becomes. Persistence is also tied to self-trust. The person who doubts their own ability to endure will retreat at the first sign of difficulty, but those who trust themselves build courage through experience. Each act of persistence becomes proof that they can rely on their own strength. This trust grows until it becomes unshakable. The mind learns that effort is never wasted, that every action contributes to eventual success even if the results are not immediate. The persistent person measures progress by consistency, not applause. They understand that persistence is its own reward, for it develops character stronger than any temporary victory. Distraction is one of the greatest enemies of persistence. The world constantly offers easier paths, quicker gratifications, and endless diversions disguised as opportunities. The persistent mind learns to filter these temptations through purpose. It asks, does this move me closer to my goal? If not, it lets them pass. Persistence requires saying no to comfort, to convenience, to anything that weakens commitment. Each refusal strengthens focus. The person who persists develops mental immunity against distraction. They value progress more than pleasure, direction more than detour, purpose more than restlessness. Persistence is fueled by perspective. When the mind can see the long view, temporary setbacks lose their power. The person who thinks in days gives up quickly. The one who thinks in years endures with patience. The persistent thinker understands that great results often arrive long after the effort that caused them. Life rewards the one who keeps sowing seeds even when the field seems barren. Each effort compounds, invisible at first, until one day the results appear as if overnight. But nothing happens overnight. It happens because persistence was there quietly, faithfully, every single day. Persistence gives strength to every other quality of the mind. Awareness without persistence fades. Discipline without persistence breaks under pressure. Belief without persistence dissolves in doubt. Focus without persistence loses direction. Gratitude without persistence forgets its purpose. Persistence ties them all together, holding the mind steady until thought becomes form and vision becomes fact.